Okay, we're right at the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, I'd like to do just a couple of housekeeping tips. And one of which is that if you have questions, if you would, please put them in the chat box and we will answer them. Most likely at the end, I may try to keep an eye on it. Sometimes it's distracting for me and I don't do as good a job. So, but either way, put your comments in the chat box. And just so you know, we are going to record this event and we will send it out sometime tomorrow after we get everything put into place and get it converted, so that you will have opportunities to go back and review this and hopefully even share it with your with your teammates and fellow colleagues. But so we're going to go ahead and get started. And the topic for today is the hidden gems of Microsoft Teams. And I'm really excited to share this with you guys. Of course, my name is Phillip Long, and most of you guys probably know who I am, but I've been in this market space for, this is our 20th year, and really more focused on solutions. If you were to, more of a technologist is what I like to call myself. I've been in the market for over 20 years. We have 600 clients between Gulfport and Gulf Breeze. I currently own several businesses, and I'm also a certified information system security professional, which is really a high level of certification for cybersecurity. Those acronyms often don't mean a lot to folks, but I'd like to welcome Michael Yu. Michael Yu is a senior systems architect in Microsoft 365 Azure administrator expert at Trusted Tech Team. He's also one of our vendors. And Michael's been really helpful to us in a lot of ways, and he's very knowledgeable. So I know we're going to get a lot of information from him today. And he's a cloud service provider licensing for over 20,000 users. So these guys are they know a lot about the cloud and they know a lot about Office 365. And he currently works with over 7,000 IT professionals like us. So jumping right in, I guess we'll say welcome, Michael. How are you?
It's fantastic to be here. Thank you so much. I'm not as accomplished as Philip yet, but I'm definitely gonna be trying to make my way there one day.
I tell you, it's what I tell everybody. 20 years, and I appreciate the compliment, I should say, but just keep working hard for 20 years with your head down, and you'll be an overnight success.
Good quote.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk a little bit about remote work. It's here to stay. Here's just some stats we put together. 42% of American workforce continues to work remotely. That's as of a month or two ago. 27% will still be working from home throughout the entire 2021. And after they say, after all this, the new normal's over, 22% will be working remotely by 2025. And these numbers are people that are like permanently working from home, not like working one day a week or, hey, working when I'm on vacation. And that is an 87% increase from the number of remote workers prior to the pandemic. So we have seen a massive explosion, really almost overnight, in the working from home. How has that affected what you have done, Michael, or what you do on a day-to-day basis?
So yeah, remote working is definitely here to stay. And I think a lot of companies are realizing that working remotely and from home and giving their employees the opportunity to do that doesn't have to mean that your profits or your productivity will take a hit. And it's definitely a learning experience as you kind of adjust to a new environment and you adjust to a new way of doing things. But there are definitely a lot of tools out there that allow you to still be just as effective as you were in the office.
That's
and
right.
I know for us that in the beginning it definitely was it definitely took a little getting used to, right? Instead of just walking over to your coworker and saying, "Hey, can I have this done?" or asking the question, you have to rely on chats and messages, things like that. But I definitely believe that this is kind of the future for a lot of industries and a lot of employees.
That's right. And kind of moving on with, your time is valuable. And I think the most successful people understand that time is indeed an unrenewable resource. I can't get back the second I just had a second ago. And whenever you start to look at life, in those manners, I think that, it'll really help you to put a focus on your activities. And there's just a few statistics that we put together here. 30% of business owners' work week consists of time wasting, low value activities. Now, this comes from entrepreneur.com and from Inc.com, these stats. And I'll tell you, I think these are very low, but this is what they could get business people and employees to admit to. The next one's 31% of employees waste about 30 minutes of their workday. I don't know how they're sizing that up, but I would bet that is much larger, but still the same. That's 30 minutes that you'll never get back. And if you've got, 6 people wasting 30 minutes, that's 3 hours. If you've got 60 people, you can just do the math. And that's stuff that you're never going to be able to capitalize on. They say that 3 hours a week is wasted on ineffective meetings and putting out preventable fires. And then there's some good news here, and we're going to touch on this in a little while, is that there are 700 new apps that integrate with Microsoft Teams. And the overall, effectiveness and productivity that Microsoft Teams encompasses is really, really, really big. So talk to me just a second about what you see. What's your office doing? Are you guys all working remote? Are y'all back in the office, or where y'all at?
So a couple of people we do have working remote, but for the most part, our office is, we have regular cleanings, we take temperatures. So most of us are back in the office. But yeah, touching back on what you said about time being valuable, it's the one thing that you can't really make back. If you lose profits, if you lose resources, there's always ways to get it back. But there's nothing in this world that you can do to get back wasted time. So productivity is absolutely a big thing for every business I can think of.
Yeah. And, if we go on a little further here, that, remote working comes with huge risk. And I think that, every time that we make a leap forward in one area, there's oftentimes things that there's, unintentional consequences. And we have certainly seen that from a cybersecurity standpoint. And we're going to address a little bit of that, how Microsoft Teams can help in these areas a little bit further. But 43% of cyber attacks target small business. And there has been a 300% increase in reported cyber crimes by the FBI since the start of COVID-19. 300% up. And every 39 seconds, there's a hacker attack. And to add to all of this, that I think is extremely important to think about and to consider, is there is going to be 75 billion internet devices by 2025. And, 2025 is literally 4 years away. And we kind of define what an IoT device is. That is your Alexa, your connected to the internet, whatever device is really what it would be. It could be your thermostat, your refrigerator, your washing machine, your doorbell, the cameras, and on and on and on and on. That's happening, that is going to, and every one of those devices has a threat vector. They have a vulnerability within them. And I think it's going to be very challenging in order to secure people with the influx of devices, the broad spectrum of people, where they work and how they connect and all those other things. What are you guys seeing from on that side, from the Azure cloud standpoint?
So with regards to the risks of working remotely and things like that, it definitely is a major concern for every company, right? If you get crypto lockered, it's things that you'll never get back, and it's a huge waste of time and resources to mitigate the attack or to try to get your data back somehow. But Microsoft. Microsoft has been the biggest target of cyber attacks for pretty much as long as they've been in the game. They've been the top dog, and so they've been hackers have attempted to hack them more than I think any other company in existence. But the upside of that is they have gotten really, really good at upping their security. And from my experience, I've never seen a hack in Azure or in Office 365. And I'd say the vast majority of successful attacks aren't because they're attacking the infrastructure, they're attacking people. People are usually the weakest point in any tech infrastructure.
Yeah.
So yeah, but security is definitely on the forefront of Microsoft's mind. Every thing they build is a lot of times it is built from the ground up to be security focused, because they understand that with this recent changes and work from home, and with a lot of more companies moving to the cloud, that these attacks are going to keep coming, and they're going to get worse and worse over time. So they really upped their security game, and there's a lot of features that will really help you mitigate the risks that you take when you work in an environment like this.
Exactly. So now we kind of come to the topic of the day. Microsoft Teams, what is it? I'll let you explain, kind of formally what it is. And then I want to talk to just the business owners out there and kind of express how I see it as a game changer as it relates to doing business for small business.
Yeah, absolutely. So on its surface level, Microsoft Teams is a messaging app, right? Think of like Slack or any of the other messaging services that you might use. But one of the reasons that I think Teams is so good for a corporate environment is that, one, it's very connected with all of the other Microsoft offerings, right? So if you use Office 365, if you use SharePoint, if you use OneDrive, or anything else, it's really easy for Teams to get connected with it. So you can work a lot more seamlessly. That's such a hard word to say for some reason, across multiple apps and things like that. And I think one of the things I hear most about Teams is that a lot of people are kind of afraid to start using it. A lot of companies are, because there are a lot of features. You can do a lot more things with Teams than you could do with something like Slack, because Teams is made, it wasn't primarily made as a messaging app. It's made as a collaboration app, right? You can do meetings, you can do chats, you can share files, you can do a lot of other stuff with it. So it definitely does have a higher learning curve, because you have so many options, and when you have a lot of options, it's easy to get overwhelmed a little bit. But I think the high learning curve is definitely worth it, and I think a lot of companies can make a lot of use out of a lot of these features and increase their productivity.
Yeah. And for me as a business owner, as well as a guy that uses technology and basically helps other clients use technology, and also is very concerned about security, here's kind of how I see it. One of the challenges that I see that most businesses face, especially in this environment where there's this work from home, working on different devices, is the control of the data. I'm going to start with security first, and I'm going to work back into productivity and collaboration. But that data being distributed all over the place with no real controls on it is a major problem. And I see that Microsoft Teams can definitely get us in the right direction on that. We're going to show we're going to dive in and actually drive around in Teams and do some things here in a minute. But controlling the data, knowing where the data is, knowing who has access to it, is a huge component for security in today's market. And like I said, even more so with people working all over the place. And then secondly, just the ability to collaborate. I was looking at my email file the other day, and it was huge. And I started looking at the largest of files. And the thing about it is, what we're doing as humans, as business people or whatever, we're sharing files back and forth on email, and the file is the same file. And it may go back and forth 10, 15, 20 times for other people to modify it and then send it back to you. Whereas using Microsoft Teams, we have this collaboration piece where we could either do it together, on a screen share, or, inside of Microsoft Teams in a virtual meeting, or we could just change it and then it syncs back to a central repository so that we have one file available to you. And then third, just the overall communication ability that you can do, even with just like chatting or quick, let's just bounce on a quick video call and have that conversation between, people inside the office or outside the office or whatever else, increases your productivity immensely. And as we started really playing around with this, I just, my mind just went crazy thinking of all the ways that we can use it to, basically make better companies. And, that's where, that's what I want to do. And, to me, when I look at this movement to the cloud, I see it as big as whenever we were once in the break fix model and we were moving to managed services where we were, basically proactively helping clients manage their network rather than answering the phone and running out like a fireman to go fix it. Now we're in this next phase where there are literally so many options out there. Software as a service companies, which, by definition, I guess Teams would be a software as a service. It's these web-based applications. Those industries are booming. And like I said earlier, there's over 700 of them that interface with Teams alone. So now it's about having an architect be able to design the most effective solution for you, train you on how to use it, and train your team on how to use it, and then be able to secure it. And I think that we're going into a phase where guys like me, which we're called managed service providers, it's going to take on a whole new level. And of course, this is part of it, is the education piece and kind of getting people to dip their toe in the water to think about it.
Exactly.
So, okay, before we go any further, I want to do a poll question real quick and find out how many people are currently running Microsoft Teams. How many people are actually using Teams in their work environment today? Just wait a couple more minutes. All right, we're going to wait about 14 more seconds to let everybody get in there. All right, we're getting a little closer. A couple more. All right, so we're going to end the polling there and we'll share the results. And we are seeing about a 50-50 split, 55-45 split on the folks on the call today are actually using Microsoft Teams, which is actually, to me, I would have thought it'd be the other way, or 60-40 who aren't using it. So that's really encouraging.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah, so all right, so we'll jump into, that increasing productivity. And we've kind of already talked about it a little bit, but here's some things that we're going to be demoing today. And we're just going to go down the list. And then we're going to do some live dig in with actual teams up. And Michael and I are going to do a few things. So first, we're going to talk about bookmarking content. We're going to talk about meeting whiteboards and collaboration, and we may even expand on that just a minute, Michael. Maybe even talk about sharing a file. I threw a file out there, and maybe that we could kind of demonstrate being able to pull a file up and see it together and modify it together.
Absolutely.
Another is virtual backgrounds. That is something that's kind of neat in there. Syncing files down to your desktop, that are being used within a meeting. Cloud recording of your meetings, and even talking about some using some of those third-party apps. There's some things that you can do with cloud recording that can even enhance your overall environment, and I'll talk to that, as well as looking at using private channels in order to communicate with people in such a way that is very secure, so that you of course aren't risking losing data. So we're going to jump in and we're going to talk about bookmarking content. And I am going to go ahead and pop over into Teams and let you share your screen.
Yeah, perfect. So during a lot of chats and things, there might be a lot of information thrown around, and it's not reasonable to think that you'll remember all of it. So one thing that really helps is if there's something, if there's an important piece of information, you can hover over the comment and you just have to click these three little dots over here. And you need the option to save this message. And when you do, you'll see a little notification at the top. And when you click on your little icon here and you go to the saved messages, you'll see a running repository of everything that you saved. And it'll also divide it up into by the conversation, right? So all of these are things I've saved during my conversation with Phil. But if you have other conversations, other people, it'll separate them out here. So if this is a great way to just kind of keep track of things, you know, how many times has it happened to you where you're trying to think of something and you know for sure that they said this to you, you know, a month ago, and you're frantically scrolling back up through the chat trying to find it, and it's just not that easy. Sometimes you get lost, but when you save it here, it's all stored in one place for you. So I find it very convenient when I need to save important information.
And all of that, of course, is searchable. And so that, and you can put it in the context. I like how it saves the, you know, the actual conversation piece back and forth so that whenever you go back into something, you can put it into context. And not only does that work, you know, inside of whenever you're on a, say, a Teams call, but it also, of course, works in chat as well, so that, you know, any type of communication and collaboration is saved within that conversation. And it's a great little feature for, hey, I need to remember this, put it there. Okay, great. Now it's completely searchable. And then you can look at it within the context of how everything took place.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to move on to meeting whiteboards. And I am going to pop out here again. And I am going to just pull up a whiteboard. And this is just a, you know, quick little whiteboard where you could pull up just to do some brainstorming with someone, and we can both, you know, share this. We can draw boxes. We can work at the same time. We can put notes. We could drag it all into one place. And again, this thing will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But you can type in notes to be able to, you know, discuss whatever, and then you can save this for later. And it's kind of like just a brainstorming type of a screen that you could have, you know, not only, you know, just Michael and I didn't ask you this, but I know at one point there was a limit to the number of people that could be in teams. What is the limit now?
I believe that limit is 100 users.
Okay, so ultimately you could have 100 people on a call doing a brainstorming type session, as well as if you wanted to, you could open open up you know, a file and actually be able to edit it and modify it together with you know, with that many people into a file, which is really you know, pretty incredible that you could have that. And again, like I was talking about earlier, where we're going back and forth, emailing all of these files. And here we are, that we could just simply pop it into this one dashboard. It would be saved along with our comments and everything else. And we could make modifications to the file together. And it's going to save a ton of time to go ahead and just jump on, collaborate, get it knocked out, and move on to the next thing.
Right. And one of the things that I found the whiteboard really useful for is for drawing out network diagrams, right? If you're onboarding a client or you're working with a client that has undergone some infrastructure change, you can have 2, 3, 4, 5 different teams of people all working on it. And so throwing up the whiteboard and just having everyone work together to draw out the network diagram is something that I've found really useful in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right, we're going to keep moving here. Let's talk about virtual backgrounds. And of course, we're in a little bit of a tough situation here because ultimately, Michael and I have two different screen shares or video calls, whatever you want to call it, going on. So we're not going to be able to show you everything because your resources like your cameras and your microphones will only work in one environment at a time.
Right. So I can't actually show you the live implementation of it, but I think it works just as well to show how to do it. So inside of the Teams meeting, you go to more actions and background effects. You're given a set of default background effects, right? These are just ones that comes with Teams, and you'll have things like, colorful backgrounds, office things. You can even blur the everything behind you if you're in a busy office and there's a lot of people walking around. You don't want it to be distracting. But you can also upload your own. Like you have Minecraft here. You have some, images from like TV shows. I have one from like Avatar and Rick and Morty. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. As long as you can find a good quality picture, you can set it as your background. And yeah, it's sometimes it's a little bit for fun, but blurring I think definitely is useful in a busy kind of environment, and it definitely keeps the focus on the speaker and not what's going on behind them.
Yeah. Like if you have people moving in the background, or if your house is messy, or, whatever's going on, you can simply just blur that background. And that is a, very effective kind of a way. See, you got the picture there with the kid in the background, and you can simply blur it. And
you see how much happier he looks with the blur.
He actually cracked a smile.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, let's talk about syncing files to your desktop. So kind of to set this up a little bit, what we're talking about here is being inside of a meeting or chat or a Teams, and we're going to say have files that we're sharing together. And how do we sync those down to our desktop so that we can ultimately, back them up, of course, but also save them to SharePoint, as well as be able to edit them. Say you're going to jump on a plane and you've just gotten through the meeting and you're going to work on it while you're on the plane, and then you want to be able to sync back up when you get on the the other side of the pond.
Yep. Absolutely. So one of the cool things about the whole integration with Teams with the other parts of the O365 infrastructure is that when you create a team, it also does create a corresponding SharePoint site. So you'll notice at the top here that in our little chat room, we have the Files tab. And I've gone ahead and I put a couple of test files in here just for demonstration purposes. But if you see this open in SharePoint, when you click that, it'll open the corresponding SharePoint page, and you'll see that my documents have synced over. And within here, you can add it, you can edit it, do whatever you need with it. But the other cool thing is that you can also sync this to your desktop OneDrive. So once you click the sync button, it'll open the OneDrive application in the background. And when it does sync, you'll see that if you go to your OneDrive, you'll see this here, and the files have synced over. So yeah, it's really useful for, let's say you're in a meeting and people just throw out like 50 files, like, hey, take a look at this later when you have the chance. And if you sync it to your desktop, you can take these with you on a plane. You can, it doesn't matter where you are. If you don't have internet, if you're in the middle of nowhere, you can still take a look at these and work on them and put in your time. And you can also download these individually if you want, in case you don't want all 50, you just want a couple of them. But to me, I think that the coolest thing is that when you do upload files here, it backs it up to SharePoint in that repository. So even if something does happen, you'll still have this.
Yeah. So that's really, very handy. And I see that as where, when you and I were preparing for this yesterday, we were working on Teams, and, you basically, I had to go check on a house that I had some damage from the storm, was getting repaired. And we're talking on my cell phone and collaborating off of my cell phone. And the experience was really good. And I had access to all the files. I had access to everything literally on a cell phone. And not even at my desk. So we can now think about this not only being, say, on the work computer, but also being on the cell phone or the iPad or on the house computer, so that you're able to simply just jump right back where you started, if you will. If you were, working on on a project at the office, and you had to leave to go, go pick up the kids or whatever you had to do, and then you go home, boom, you're right there. You're back in the same spot where you once were. Everything is collaborated. If I make changes, if I make comments, we can chat back and forth. All of that stays in one place. And it is, super ready and super easy to be able to do. And we didn't want to get too broad. We'll do a SharePoint presentation soon. But SharePoint is actually, like, if we think about our old, company portal, that seems to me at one point that was every company's dream, until they realized how much it cost to make one, and they realized, all that. And now
Yeah.
SharePoint really makes that within reach.
Absolutely. SharePoint is one of the most powerful offerings I think Microsoft has. And like how I was talking about before, how Teams is a little overwhelming to people because of the depth of features and how many things you can do with it. SharePoint goes a few steps beyond that. And I think it's definitely worthwhile to learn SharePoint and at least have a basic grasp of it. But yeah, there's so many things you can do with that. And I think it's a much more accessible way for companies to have their own branded websites and branded, subsites and things like that without having to hire like a web dev and host their own servers and things like that. It's a very good halfway point, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think from a standpoint of, kind of, I'll tie that into our next feature that we're going to talk about. Just want to be sure we're going to respect everyone's time. Is like cloud recording, and let's just kind of go through that and couple it back in with the SharePoint. Say that you're going to do a employee onboarding or a client onboarding or something that is going to be used a lot. You can simply do it within Teams, record the overall event, and then save it into a SharePoint folder, and be able to then develop a dashboard, let's say, for all new hires. So it's not, what I would call inorganic. It's a very organic process, a natural process where we have been going and, onboarding people and using and doing all this work. And we've done it, individually or, with whatever the group was that was getting onboarded at the time, where now we can say, hey, I tell you what, let's meet and let's talk about it. And then I'm going to give you this video to watch. And then you can refer back to it later if you need to, touch on points. And with the cloud recording, one of the interfaces that are there is there's another product, and one that basically is one of those additional applications that tie into Teams called Stream. And if you turn on, and we'll do that here now while we're doing this, if you turn on the text, or what am I thinking of, Michael? What do you call it? It's the
Live captions.
Yeah, live captions. It actually will let you be able to search a video for when certain words are captured or are used. Now, of course, it won't work because my microphone is tied up within this on the Zoom call. But literally, if we were doing this inside of Teams, our words would be scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. And I don't think, can I turn it on? Let me just try. Let's see, I may be able to turn it on and see.
Yeah, I unmuted myself in Teams just so I could show this feature real quick. And you can see that it actually works pretty well. Voice transcription is extremely hard in the best circumstances, but from my experience, this is pretty good. And you'll see that it works pretty well, right?
Yeah. And from there, you can then push that over into another product called Stream, and then you'll be able to search it throughout that whole video where those words are actually used, which is extremely powerful for oh, I know we talked about that during that meeting, and again, all that goes over to SharePoint and it's saved. And I know we talked about that in that meeting. Let me go find it. You go out here, you play your video, you search where those words are, and it puts marks at the bottom along the video track and shows you where those words were used, so you can quickly fast forward and kind of go right to where that happened.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I'll show you guys so after you do the recording, after you end the meeting, you'll actually get an email, and I'll show you guys what the email looks like. You'll get something like this saying, hey, your recording's ready. Go now to your video, which takes you to this page. And this gets saved. So, down the road, if someone else needs to watch it, you don't have to give the whole presentation again. You can just link them to this video, and you can have them watch it and save yourself a bunch of time and effort. And yeah, the recording so far has worked out really well. I don't think I've ever had an issue with it. You'll see that we recorded our one of our prep meetings as kind of a, just to test the feature out. And yeah, so far, no complaints about this at all.
Yeah, really neat. And I guess we could show them how to turn on the recording when they were, how to record a thing. It's real simple.
Yeah. So for us, it's grayed out because we're in multiple meetings. But inside of any meeting, you go here and you just hit start recording, and it'll be about 5 or 10 seconds, and you'll see a little message pop up in here saying, "Hey, your meeting's being recorded."
Yeah, really simple, and I think really powerful as we tie it all together. I had a question from one of the folks on the call. Does the management of data become challenging if there are files on the server and then put into Teams and revised, but not copied back down to the server? And I'll take a crack at that. If as long as you're storing them in OneDrive, and which is part of Teams, really, Teams and is part of OneDrive, and OneDrive is part of SharePoint. As long as you're storing files there, you're really not creating new files. That's where the effectiveness really comes in, because you're not creating all those different copies that are scattered all around, to where ultimately you need a server in order to pull that off, where now everything's being stored automatically in the cloud. Michael, you want to add to that?
Yeah, you pretty much hit it head on. So as long as you are making sure to edit and sync it back up, there shouldn't really be any issues. It does get a little confusing when there's a ton of people and a ton of files, but as long as you coordinate with your team and don't save new files or anything like that, I haven't really run into an issue with that.
Yeah, what's nice about it to me is the fact that you're not doing something that you don't normally do anyway. It's just files and folders. You create a client file, then you put the client's name and you put files in there, and then maybe there's subsettings of files in there, within those files, so that it's not something that you're not already doing, and there's not a big learning curve on how to do that.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about private channels, and really want to highlight the ability for discussion internally and externally. I think it's really important that from a security standpoint, that who you're talking to, and ultimately be able to control that from like, for instance, the admin side of things, or whatever, not letting the users just run amok. So even for us to be able to do this Teams, because he's in one domain and I'm in another, we have to go to the portal and actually allow our two companies to be friends on within the Microsoft 365 portal. And so if you could show that real quick, how you
Absolutely
go in. There's a lot of back-end settings, and indeed, it's like what you said earlier. Microsoft has come a long way in securing things. The only thing that I say is that, of course, not everything is turned on for security by default. You got to have an admin that knows a little something.
Yeah, absolutely. So external access is I think, a pretty important feature for Teams, because a lot of times you're going to need to be talking with outside companies, whether they be vendors or clients or any number of things. So you do have to explicitly allow Teams the ability to do that, because by virtue, it's less safe than allowing only people in your organization, right? But they do give you a lot of control over what can happen with external users, with what they can and can't do, what they have access to, and what they're blocked from. So there's a whole bunch of settings. I'm sure you guys can see. Each of these tabs is has just as many subtabs as this. So yeah, security. Looping back around on security. Teams is often a lot slower to roll out features than a company like Slack or Zoom or things like that, because Microsoft really tries to make sure that any kind of update or any kind of new feature is secure before they release it. Because being Microsoft, I'm sure they've had near misses and things like that where things could have gone really bad. So as far as security goes, I would trust Teams more than any other messaging app at the current moment. And a lot of that is because Microsoft has been really hammering it home.
Yeah, and there's even dashboards in here to measure your own internal security of how you're managing that. Let's just do a quick like a quick chat and kind of show just a little bit about how, just like in general, if we wanted to do a simple chat, with folks, this is really where I think that most folks ought to start. Let's just say, with using Teams, just internal chat. Let's just look at that.
Yeah. So here's the chat between Phil and I. He hasn't said hi back to me yet, unfortunately, but
oh gosh.
No worries. So the private channels are something that you would create. You would first create a team, which in this case is Trust the Tech team that Philip created. And it starts with a general channel, but you have the option. I don't have the option because I'm not the admin of AskBiz, but you have the option to create as many sub-channels as you want. And within each of those sub-channels, you can tweak the security settings so that they're either public or private or invite only. So even within a singular team, you can have multiple divisions under that, right? So for example, you could have a general chat for everything related to Trust the Tech team. You could have a private channel for discussing, internal technical issues. You can have another one for like business dev and things like that. So it's really easy to segregate your data so that only the right people have access to the right files.
Yeah. Another feature that I think is very handy is the fact that you would be able to tell whether you want people, like, say, for instance, you had someone new come onto a team. Tell you what, let me just slide this over here. I don't want a bunch of proprietary information or whatever. I'm always worried about that. But like, we have a sales and marketing team right here that I'm a member of. I have an option to, of course, I can manage the team. I can add channels underneath this team. I can leave the team. I can add a member. And when I go to add a member to the team, I have an option to whether they can see all of the history of communication from within that team. And I can see that as something very valuable, because say that, they're a new member to the team and there's pertinent information, and all they would have to do is go right up to the search bar and search back in time to be able to look at, whatever happened and kind of come up to speed. Or maybe they're a new member and they don't need to see it, so I don't give them history. They only get to see what's moving forward. So again, there's a lot of options, a lot of security built in there to be able to protect. And then, of course, like we talked about, kind of to talk about the actual private channel, where if you're talking with your attorney or whatever, you're going to have somebody go in the back end and allow your two companies to chat. You just can't drop out and make a make a team internally. Although you could do a I guess what we would call like a Zoom call without that, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of granularity with permissions and security in teams, so that you never have to worry about creating a team and then having people have too much access. You have a lot of control over what people can and can't see. And that goes a long way for security. It goes a long way for collaboration.
Yeah. In just the medical industry, when I was putting this together, I was looking and there was, I forget, in the month of September of 2020, I forgot how many millions of medical records had been hacked. And they weren't just off of one huge hack. It was just like multiple things. So you need to know, where your files are and who has access to them. And, be careful with who your people within your team, if we have owners and things like that, who your people on the teams can talk to, and can they share files? Do they need to have certain levels of access where they can, upload files and things like that? Maybe you don't want to give them that, and you can definitely control this relatively easily once you kind of get your training wheels going and you see, where things are put. Got a question here. Any use in using Teams with on-prem Microsoft Office and on-prem file servers? I would say 100%, because you can still use it with, as a texting tool, like you would say with Slack or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
as a messaging. And it's so much more powerful in that you can, the collaboration piece, the sharing of files, and really you can migrate over time. You don't have to go all in, because go back and show, like, on that little document tree, if you would, for me, Michael, so that I want people to kind of understand if you could show, like,
Yep.
remember how you save some files on your local computer.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just like anything else where, that trusted tech team folder is underneath his OneDrive, which is really a folder on the computer, and he's saving files in there. And then of course he has his My Documents up there, and a whole, he could click on the C drive and see a whole bunch of other files. So it's not difficult to know where things are sitting, simply because you're used to files and folders and being there. Had another question about, are there size limits for sharing?
So size limits for uploading these files, because it is connected to SharePoint, it is directly connected to your SharePoint quota. And SharePoint has a lot of space. I haven't seen anyone SharePoint go past that space yet, but it is 1 terabyte to start for every user with a legitimate license. So if you have 10 users with E5 licenses, your total storage capacity for SharePoint would be 5 terabytes, or
Yeah.
10 terabytes, sorry.
10 terabytes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, too, another thing that I really want to drive home, y'all may have already gotten this, but I'm going to repeat myself, is that now we don't have 10 copies of the same file. We have
Right.
one copy of the file that's been modified and shared in a very effective manner, so that your data set actually won't grow exponentially based on how good your users are. If you ever want to see how much how much data can be wasted just getting a marketing team. They will make files upon files upon files upon files, and it's just crazy. Whereas with this, it's really the same file, and he can share that file with me. We can both modify it and edit it and save it back in the same place for easy availability, as well as not taking up 2 files worth of space for ultimately the one that you don't want, that you wish somebody would have deleted but they never did, kind of a situation.
Absolutely. And the less clutter there is, the better, because I'm sure we all deal with enough clutter in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I want to kind of transition. We're getting close to time here. We got 12 more minutes, and I want to talk a little bit about, an offer that we're going to give out for everybody about this, and I want to talk a little bit more about the just really making more effective meetings, and increasing that low productivity that we're doing by using Teams. Got one more question here: are multiple people able to edit the same document simultaneously? Yes, they are. And there's even a chat window that's associated with that document so that you can go back and look at the document as well as the chat that you were, talking while you were editing that document. So really, really handy.
Absolutely.
One thing that I want to make sure people understand, I'm going to go here. Office 365 does not guarantee against data loss. This, from a security standpoint, I kind of look at a backup as your last line of defense when it comes to security. And most people don't know this, but under the Microsoft Services Agreement, you can go pull it up. It's in Section 6B. Microsoft is not liable for any disruption or loss you may suffer as a result. In the event of an outage, you may not be able to retrieve your content or data that you've stored. So they recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on the services or store using third-party apps and services. That's something that really, struck me as a guy who's always concerned about security and seeing as, a backup as a main line of security. And I see so many people out there that are thinking that, yeah, I'm putting everything in OneDrive and I'm good to go. Well, there is still a high level of risk, but don't worry, there's solutions out there for that. And for all the folks that are on the call today, we have a special offer. We're going to let you demo something that is really pretty cool. But we offer a free Microsoft 365 security audit. And with that, we want to offer you a cloud migration evaluation. This has been one of the things that is just, whenever you start digging into Microsoft and you look at this Microsoft 365 platform, what you're going to find, what a lot of companies are finding, is they no longer need to have that server in the closet. And I will take you through some steps here to see if you need that server in the closet anymore. And that's part of our free offer, as well as doing that Microsoft 365 security review. Michael, you talked about this earlier. They've done a bunch with Microsoft in way of security as far as features, and I'm going to ding them in one area in that, and I get it. They can't turn everything on because it would freak everybody out. It wouldn't make it functional. It'd be even more complicated. But there's certain things that 100% need to be turned on in the back end of your Microsoft 365. There's a thing called BEC. It's business email compromise, and that alone is a multi-billion-dollar a year theft. And that's where somebody knowing your email address, which is your username, and they somehow find your password, and they can literally sit on your email account and watch the traffic and figure out ways to exploit that data. And it happens so often. In the Q4 of 2020, just our small company, I dealt with several people, 3 or 4 people that had that happen to them, and it was really costly and very difficult to manage. We're also going to give you guys a product. We call it we branded it's Cloud Finder, and it is a 30-day trial of an Office 365 unlimited backup. And what it is, it backs up absolutely everything that is in the Office 365 portal, your SharePoint, your OneDrive, your Exchange, your all of the documents that are encompassed in that Office 365 product. It backs them up. And it really has a lot of other cool features that I won't bore you with, where you could go and do a global search across the entire environment for documents, for emails, and the like. And it's cheap. It's $2.50 a month if you decided to keep that. And it's really a great product for securing your Office 365 portal from data loss. Does 3 backups a day, detailed reporting and monitoring of all backup activities. Normally, this kind of a thing, it takes a lot to do that audit. We have it listed here at $779, but it's going to take a bunch of time. It does have value what we're offering there, and that's free for anybody who is on the webinar today. And all I ask is that we would do that before the end of January, just so that that doesn't really, impede with that, because that cloud, basically the migration, seeing if you're a candidate for cloud migration, it takes some time. But there's a lot of value that comes from it, because we get to discover, where files are and how you're currently set up, and a lot of other things in there. So, Michael, any comments? And I'm going to be looking through to see if we have any more questions.
I think I've gotten the 3 questions in the Q&A chat, but again, I know that it's funny because at my previous job, we used to use Slack for all of our communications for both in and out of the company. And when the higher ups announced that we would be migrating to Teams, it was met with a lot of, no, we don't want to switch, like Slack works. And in about 4 months' time, people were praising things in Teams left and right. So change is scary, especially if you're moving to a product that has a higher learning curve and is a little overwhelming at times. But I would say that it is definitely worth a good try. Maybe try it for a few months and dedicate a little bit of time to learn all of the different things that you can do, all the different integrations it has. And I think that a lot of companies can find a lot of value in learning and using Teams.
Yeah, 100%. We were previously using Slack, and I mean, having a bunch of tech guys, and oh, we love it, we love it, we love it. We flipped over to Teams, and you're exactly right. They were like unbelievable. Just could not believe the all of the ways, and with over 700 applications, and that list is growing, that integrate with the product. There is just a ton of solutions that are just laying there to be found for a company, and that's where we're heading as a company. We're in the process of training all of our guys on Office 365, and just the benefits, and really digging in really, really, really deep, so that we're able to, when we come across a client that has a problem, we have the solution. And I really think that's the next stage. Like I said earlier, that's the next game for us. That's the next way that we're going to be able to provide the most value for a client, is to get them into an environment where, if 25% of their people are going to be at home all the time, and then, that's not even including the people that work from home. Hey, I want to work. I have a young lady here, and she's got some reasons, and she needs to be home Tuesday and Thursday. Well, in this environment, it's like, okay, no problem. And I've seen people's production skyrocket when they go and work from home.
Yeah, I think as long as you give people the tools they need to be successful at home, I think working from home is it's great. But yeah, you just have to make sure that they have the tools to be successful at home, I think is the main takeaway.
And the other side of that, if you don't give them the tools, they'll find their own. And oftentimes, like Dropbox and other tools like that, now they're taking your files and they're storing them in their cloud environment with their passwords and their everything. And it really can. If you don't give them the tools, they'll find a way to make it work. And I really believe that's a lot of the reason why we've seen such a huge spike in the since people have gone home to work in cybersecurity things, is because people don't have the right tool.
Exactly.
All right. Well, good. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour, guys. If you need anything, or if you have any questions or anything, we're always here to help. All you need to do is to email events@askbis.com, and keep an eye on these. And if you have like things that you want to learn about, things that are, something that you feel like would help your industry or your company, and you'd like us to do kind of one of these business builder type webinars, all you have to do is send it in to events@askbis, and we'll be happy to put something together, and not only help you guys, but help our business community at large. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us, and we will see you soon. Have a great week.